Are you ready to embark on a transformative journey? Hi, I am Sharon Kumara, host of Awakened Soul. By tuning into Awakened Soul Radio, you will be inspired to shed the illusions that bind you, connect more deeply with your inner wisdom, and step into a liberating life of freedom, clarity, and purpose. Each episode, I share stories and lessons learned that help cultivate greater compassion, patience, and understanding, qualities to embody in everyday life. I invite you to join in as we expand our awareness, exploring diverse topics, and gain access to practical tools, guided exercises, and expert advice to help overcome fears and break the chains that bind us. Join us on Awakened Soul. Your journey to freedom and true self begins here. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Awakened Soul Radio. And I am your host, Sharon Sananu Kumara, author of Awakened Soul book, My Near-Death Journey Home Through Christ's Infinite Love, if you can see that without the glare on it. And I am actually working on Awakened Soul 2, which is a little bit of a segue into our conversation today with Therese Wade, where I share my out-of-body experiences, my healing journey with out-of-body experiences, and lots of journeys across not only across the globe, but across the galaxy and probably universe. So I'm really excited that'll be coming out next year, early next year, around spring. And that's a really good segue into talking with my guest, Therese Wade. Hi, Therese.
Hi, Sharon.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for reaching out, because Therese had a very interesting experience, amazing, profound experience in regard to 3I Atlas, what they call the Comet in our part of the galaxy. And I'm really excited to talk about what your experience entails. And you wrote an article on it, and it was pretty profound for sure. And I've had some insights on 3I Atlas as well. And there's lots of ideas out there, lots of insights people are getting. I believe people are communicating some way, somehow, with this phenomenon that's in that's in our part of the solar system for sure right now. So anyway, Therese is the founder of Antara Healing. She's an amazing healer, and I'm really honored to have her on my show.
Thank you so much, Sharon. And I'm excited to hear anything you can share about 3I Atlas. I know people are really buzzing about it. And every day it seems like there's something new reported about how it's just anomalous. It's not the usual comet story. So, so I think what I'll do is I'll start with a little bit of my background before I jump into my out-of-body visit to 3I Atlas.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, so in my early 30s, I first started being visited by interdimensional beings, and it was after a Kundalini awakening experience. Before that, I really had very little paranormal experiences in my life. I was practicing Kundalini meditation on a daily basis, trying to heal my body from a chronic pain condition. And pain is very motivating, so I was very dedicated, meditating, 3-4 hours a day, trying to heal my body. And I didn't know that much about Kundalini meditation. I just knew that people say it was the most powerful way to heal. So I started practicing, and I blended it with a self-hypnosis routine that I was already doing for chronic pain. And then I was at my chronic pain therapist's office when she told me that she studied under Hawaiian medicine women, and they told her that every part of the body has its own consciousness, even the little finger. And that was like a light bulb moment for me, because I had recently started to experience brainwave states during my meditation that were very different from anything I'd ever experienced before, like deep theta brainwave states. So I would notice that all of a sudden I didn't feel any pain, and I didn't feel any concerns about anything. And I thought, this is different. This is a different way of existing. And there was more to it than that energetically, but she told me those words about the Hawaiian medicine women right at the same time that I was starting to begin those new brainwave states during meditation. So I thought, what would happen if I did my meditation like usual, but instead of just blissing out when I reached deep theta, what if I used that brainwave state to talk with my body and try to get it to cooperate? So that same night I went home and I waited, I meditated until I felt that shift where I felt perfectly peaceful and content. And then I went down into my lower right leg where I was having paralysis because the chronic pain condition I had is called CRPS. They used to call it RSD. Now they're calling it CRPS, but it's an autonomic nervous system disorder that spreads through the body and can cause paralysis. And that's what was happening to me. So it was quite serious. And I went down into my leg and I started speaking to my leg, and I had a phenomenal reaction. And it led to me continuing to use the method to recover and to make a lot of progress. And that story would take up the whole hour, so maybe I'll save that for another time. But the Kundalini awakening experience that happened the very next day after I tried talking to my leg opened up a doorway where I started getting visited by interdimensional beings for the first time in my life, other than one paranormal experience when I was 12. And so I'm just gonna, when I say interdimensional beings, I'm including a whole range of beings, but some of them I know are extraterrestrial, interdimensional. So I'm going to stick with those examples tonight and just pick a few that stand out to me. So just so that people understand how this was developed, I wasn't born this way. I wasn't born naturally seeing into other dimensions or traveling out of body. I know some people are, but I wasn't. So it was after the Kundalini awakening, and I was in my living room meditating. And there's a part in the Kundalini meditation where you draw or you welcome energy down from the stars, and you welcome it to flow through your crown chakra, through your body. Right when I got to that part, I saw a flickering white light in the center of my brain. So I was like seeing it behind my eyeballs. And then I felt a change of pressure in my brain. And all of a sudden I could see 360 degrees around me. I could see my entire living room in perfect detail, vivid, even though my eyes were closed. And right to my left, there was a being who was at least 9 feet tall. And I know that because my ceiling in the living room was 9 feet, and he was so tall that he had to tilt his head forward to fit under my ceiling.
Whoa.
And he was wearing a white robe with a white hood. And I call it a he, but I really have no idea. There was light glowing from within the robe. And this being was so thin compared to how tall that I wonder if inside the robe was just light. Like I've wondered that because I couldn't see the form of a body so much because it was so thin and tall. And the feeling I got from this being was that there was no ego. He was just there in service to the creator and had no agenda of his own. So it felt kind of angelic to me. And then there was this brilliant white light that started pouring down from above through the ceiling into my crown, and his arm reached out and merged with the light so that his hand, although it was disguised by a long sleeve on the robe, so I didn't even see his hand, but I could see, you know, where his hand would be, was just hovering over my crown chakra as the light from above poured into my body, filled my body. And that lasted a little while, and then kind of the awareness of it kind of dissipated. Then I saw a different spiraling white light flowing up my spine into my brain. And it really moved like a snake, but it was white light. And so that, I didn't know that was an extraterrestrial being, but a little bit down the road, I started mentoring under a shaman who's really psychic. And I told her about that experience and asked her, what was that being? And she said it was an extraterrestrial from a really high dimension. And I remember her saying, at that level, they don't need ships. They can just manifest in your living room. So that experience really stands out to me. And then uh, a little while after that, I bought this pyramid kit from, I think, Bosnia or someplace in Europe. And it's a PVC pipe pyramid kit. So it's just the frame of a pyramid. And it's supposedly that's all you need to get the pyramid effects is the frame,
Mm.
according to them. So I was putting it up in my backyard, and my mentor, the shaman, she told me use a compass to find electromagnetic north and use dowsing rods to find like strong ley line activity in your yard. So I did, and she said to line up the pyramid so that one of the corners would point electromagnetic north. So I followed her instructions, and she said, if you do this, you're going to attract UFOs, which wasn't why I was doing it, but I was like, okay. I was doing it to meditate. I was setting up the pyramid to meditate inside of. So that, because I thought, oh,
Right.
this could enhance and speed up any intention that I'm trying to do while I meditate. That's what I was thinking.
Right.
But actually, when I meditated inside that pyramid, it was way too intense for me. The energy was so strong, I could only last 5 minutes and then I'd move outside of it.
Hmm.
One thing I thought was interesting is that she said, always enter and exit from the east of the pyramid,
Mm.
or you might find yourself in a different dimension. So
Good to
I,
know.
I never tested it. I always did what she said. But one day I'm lying out there. It was in the summer and it was in broad daylight, like 3 p.m. I'm laying on the grass outside of the pyramid, looking at the sky. And this silver, or not, it's more like a dark gray metallic disc flies right over top of my backyard, low, so low that I could see the material that it was made of. It was like a dark gray, metallic, shiny, smooth material. It almost reminded me, I felt like if I were to touch it, it would feel similar to a laptop screen
Mm.
because it just looked so smooth and almost a little bit soft or something.
Hmm.
It flew right over my backyard, flying low, didn't make a sound. And then it went over my neighbor's backyard. I stood up and watched it. And as soon as it went past the two trees in my neighbor's yard, the treetops were blocking my view of it. So that's just another sign of how low it was flying. And it wasn't that big. I think it was probably made for 4 or 6 passengers. But I actually reported it to MUFON. I was all excited. And the guy called me like 2 days later and asked me a bunch of questions. And he told me it was very rare to see or to get reports on metallic discs anymore.
Mm. And when was this?
This would have been, I think, 2017.
Okay.
He said usually all the reports they were getting were like triangular craft or orbs, like giant orbs. And
Yeah.
I've never seen either of those. But this was just like the classic metallic flying disc that they used to talk about in the 1940s or whatever. Except it was darker than I imagined. It was like a dark gray instead of that average silver color.
Silver. Yeah.
So my shaman predicted that pyramid would attract UFOs, and then that happened. It was 3 months later, but it happened. And who knows how many it attracted when I wasn't out there.
Right.
But also a funny thing that happened soon after that, there were a bunch of black helicopters flying over my backyard, and that's not a neighborhood where that happens. I don't
Yeah.
know if it was connected, but they were flying around my neighborhood for like 20 minutes. It was strange. So I don't know if the pyramid was affecting the electromagnetic field in a way that got their attention or something. It's just something I wondered about.
Yeah.
So then another event that really stands out to me was in May of 2022. I was staying at a cabin in the mountains here in Washington on the Skycomish River. And the cabin had these big windows. You could look out the windows at the river. And it was that part of the river that narrows and then gets wide again. So it creates like whitewater. And I was just watching the river and I start to see this phenomenon where about 10 feet above the water, these mist capsules started materializing out of thin air. And each one was the size of a refrigerator. These were not
Wow.
small. And they were materializing next to each other, and then they looked like they were getting sucked up through two large invisible tubes into a low, flat cloud that looked very suspicious. And I kept watching, and as soon as two of them would disappear into the cloud, two more were already materializing in the same exact place. And then they would get sucked up through the tube. And this kept going on for at least six. I wasn't counting, but I know it was at least three sets of two. And I remember saying out loud, "What am I looking at?" I had no category to put this in. Then it just kind of, they just stopped materializing. And the cloud just hovered there. And I remember looking at the cloud thinking, that's a strange cloud. It was low and flat and kind of disc shaped. And it was a little bit of a darker color than the other clouds.
Yeah, they
And
hide in clouds.
it was lower than the other clouds. So 3 hours later, I had a phone appointment with my mentor, which is kind of unusual because at that point in 2022, I was only talking to her 2 or 3 times a year. So it just happened to be the same day. And she always starts with an opening prayer. And as soon as she finished her opening prayer, she said, "Therese, your ET guides are back." Because they don't come through in my shamanic sessions with her very often, because I have human guides too. And
Yeah.
she always gets a little weirded out when my ET guides come through because she thinks they're weird. But anyway, she said, "Your ET guides are here, and I'm afraid to be in my office alone." She's just joking. She's not actually afraid of them, but so so she tells me they're going to be interacting with you more than usual for a while because they're here examining something that's going on with the tectonic plates up by Alaska. This was in 2022. And she said something they put in place a long time ago for stability was needing attention. And so they're here doing that. And while they're here, they're going to be interacting with you more than usual for a while. And then when she finished saying that, I said, "I saw something really strange above the river this morning." And I started to describe, I said, there was this low, flat cloud. And then she interrupted me and said, "That was not a cloud. That was a cloaked craft." And before I even had a chance to tell her anything more, she starts describing 6 to 8 seed craft, each one carrying one being inside. Remember how I said it's the size of a refrigerator?
Yeah.
She said each one carried one being inside. And she said there was like a camouflaged portable launch pad above the river that I couldn't see because it was camouflaged. And it was extending tunnels up to the cloaked craft. And I hadn't even told her that it looked like they were getting sucked up through tubes. So she was just describing the whole scene to me before I told her. And so what she said was that part of the river that gets narrow and then wide again, it has a slipstream effect that affects the electromagnetic field. And it makes it convenient for them to use their portable, she said those mist capsules, she was calling them seed craft. She said that it's an easy way for them to quickly move in and out of dimensions. So the cloaked cloud craft was already here. But the seed craft were beings who were coming into this dimension and then getting sucked up through the tunnels into the craft that was waiting for them. That's the way she described it.
I find it interesting that you're experiencing all this in 2022 because I had a lot of extraterrestrial experiences in 2022 that, yeah, were unusual for sure. Um, and I don't know if you know about Elena Denon. She shared that she confirmed a lot of my experiences with her reports and her artwork after the fact. And what she said was that there was a lot of negative extraterrestrials that were taken off the planet around that time. They had started taking, there was things were opening up, portals were opening up where um, the cedar races were coming into our star system that had seeded our planet, were seeding the galaxy, that type of thing. They were coming into our in our star system, our part of the galaxy, and things were in other beings were also being taken off. Negative extraterrestrials were being taken off the planet. So
Mm.
there was a lot happening 2022, 2023. Around that time, they were opening up portals, I guess you could say, for or timelines for their a bleed through where they were here.
I believe it because I do remember her saying there was a lot of buzz and a lot of ET presence, and she said that's why I felt called to go out to the mountains because I stayed in the mountains that whole summer. Were you
Okay.
called? Were you called out to nature more that during that time?
Um, Not that I recall. I don't know, but I live on the river, and
Hmm.
I spend a lot of time out there, so I don't really have to go that far.
And if
Yeah.
they use rivers to come in and out of this dimension quickly, it might not be an accident that you live on a river.
Yeah. I don't think so. Yeah.
So, yeah. So then, so she told. I was thinking, well, maybe these ETs are going to show up again in a week, but it was the very next morning. I woke up. I was in a deep trance that was something I hadn't experienced before. And the same thing happened where I could all of a sudden see 360 degrees around me. I see a man standing in the kitchen watching me with he looked like he was about 28 to 30 and he was wearing a hipster hat. I could see the entire yard that I shouldn't have been able to see. And I could see a little boy playfully running through the yard. And then to my right, I see two beings standing just a couple of feet from me. They're completely see through, like crystalline beings.
Mm-hmm.
And they were not very tall. They looked like old men, to be honest, because they had wrinkles on their foreheads. And even though they were completely see through and had no color, I could see all their features perfectly. And their eyes, their features on their face looked pretty normal, like human like. But their heads were bald and extra bulbous compared to a human.
Mm-hmm.
And they were shorter than humans. And so they were just staring into my eyes. And I realized that the man in the kitchen was watching them and me because they were right next to me. And the next thing I know, I start feeling this super strong energy entering the bottom of my left foot through the sole of my foot, traveling slowly up the left side of my body. When it reached my head and started passing through my brain to the right side of my body, I could hear crackling noises on my scalp.
Wow.
And then it started traveling down the right side of my body. And it just kept cycling like a circuit like that. And my nerves were firing. I mean, I just felt like I was getting plugged into some kind of major socket or something. But I wasn't
Yeah.
scared because I was in such a deep trance. Then I heard my own voice audibly, but it was telepathic, but it was my voice, say, "What color should I be visualizing?" Like I knew what was going on. I didn't know what was going on, but some part of me did. So then I see this beautiful turquoise pottery, like vase thing floating in front of me. So I start visualizing turquoise all around my body. And
That's great.
after a little while, I see a lavender scarf floating in front of me. So then I start visualizing the lavender color around me. Then I,
That's crazy. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you. I was going through my journals for my book, my out of body experience book, and I
yeah,
journaled where I experienced something. It was in 2020 though, July 5th, 2020, and and I felt there was a light coming in through the window in the bedroom, and there's no way lights can come where I live. I live down like in downstairs, 25 stairs, and then the road is up there, so there's no way a light could come in the way it was. It would have to be coming down the hill and crashing into our house in order for it to shine a headlight. But it was one light that came in, and I knew, and I was, you're in that in between state, and I knew that these were my beings that were
hmm,
coming to visit me or do whatever. And I told them in my mind that I was ready to see them in, consciously. That I wasn't afraid. I knew that they were my gray caretakers or my caretakers, whoever they are.
Yeah.
And now this is the really strange part is that um, I felt them. I felt their hands on me, and I was bilocating. I was in my bed with that awareness, and I was with them on a ship or something, and they were moving my head around, and they were moving my body, and I was looking at um, a wheel of different colored lights, and they were spinning, and they were moving my body in some kind of orchestration with the lights that they were using for my healing. They were moving my feet. I was on my side, but when they were working on me, I could feel I was on my back. So when you're talking about colors,
Mm-hmm.
that helped me remember that. And I just marked that page this morning.
Oh, interesting.
But like you said, I knew what was happening.
Yeah.
I wasn't afraid. I just knew why they were here and what was happening. So continue. I'm sorry. I just had to share
Oh
that
no,
for a second.
I'm glad. I like to hear other people's similar experiences. It's just confirmation. But did your whole self know what was going on or just some part of you?
My whole self, meaning
Oh,
me
okay.
here, Sharon. You mean Sharon? Or
Yeah, Sharon.
yeah, I believe I did because I was in that. I mean, I was awake. My cat was laying up against my chest. I was in bed on my side, and I knew that I was still here, just like a conscious out of body experience. I knew that my body was laying in bed, but I was bilocating. I had dual awareness in both awarenesses as Sharon and the Sharon that they took into the higher dimension, I guess. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you were present in both places at once.
Yeah. And I do believe that it has something to do with the fact that probably took me. And this is how I remembered it after the fact, you know what I mean? Kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah. So there
remembering
was a
after.
bleed. Yeah, like a bleed. Well, it was at the time I was remembering, I was in the experience. It wasn't the morning after. It was while I
Right.
was in I had full uh, real time memory of it in the experience, or I was in the experience. It wasn't a memory kind of thing,
Yeah.
but I believe it really was a memory kind of thing.
I think it's usually both. Like you're
Yeah,
there, but
yeah,
then sometimes you remember even more after. Um,
yeah,
but
totally. I told them in my mind, sorry, that I was not afraid to see them, but I don't
yeah.
recall seeing them.
Okay.
So my memory was limited of
Okay.
it in real time.
Right.
You know how you can stand outside and see a spaceship and there's a bunch of people around you that don't see it? You know what I mean? So say
Well,
that
I'm sure that
happened.
happens. I'm sure
It
that happens.
happens.
But every time that I've seen a spaceship, except for once, I was alone. One time I was with my brother and we both saw it. But
Okay.
I'm sure a lot of people have that experience where you're the only one who sees it.
Yeah, I was just as a comparison, that part of our consciousness is able to see a spaceship and another part of the consciousness is not. So I kind
Yeah.
of feel like that's where we're at with these experiences when if they happen in real time, then or have enough memory to bring it into real time, be in it in real time. There's only certain parts of it that we're able to recall,
Yeah.
unless we have hypnosis or meditation or something to recall more and more and more. Yeah,
Yep. I agree with that.
yeah.
So these beings worked on me for a couple of hours. I don't know if I said this part. After the lavender scarf, I saw my own face looking back at me, and
Mm.
it would change. It would go through different ages in my life. I would see my face at different ages. And so this process with the energy cycling through me and all this strong, I could feel my nerves firing and muscles getting flooded with energy. And this went on for like 2 hours. And then it just kind of started to dissipate. and my awareness of that other dimension just kind of started to fade. And I I asked my mentor what was going on, right? And she said the man in the kitchen was an astral traveler who just saw what was going on and wanted to check it out. The boy in the yard was a ghost who actually ended up following me to another location, and that's a whole other story. The two beings next to me had come through in those mist pods that I saw above the river. And she said they were doing maintenance work on my nervous system because she said what some of these star seeds are doing here is their nervous systems are like tethers to the electromagnetic field, and they're helping to keep the electromagnetic poles from drifting too quickly because of the part of the galaxy our solar system is moving through. The poles have been drifting faster and faster for like the last 30 years or so. It's been speeding up. But if they drift too fast, we have a lot more cataclysmic activity on the planet with earthquakes and storms and fires and flooding. And obviously, we've seen that ramp up. But she was saying that if there weren't star seeds here helping the poles from drifting too fast, it would have been a lot more chaotic. And so she said that they were doing maintenance work on my nervous system so I could keep participating in that way.
Yeah.
And
I believe that's what they were doing with me too. Maintenance work. Yeah.
mm-hmm. And so that whole summer I stayed in the mountains, and I continued to have a lot of extraterrestrial experiences, a lot of paranormal experiences in multiple ways. And I think that happens more in the mountains anyway, but you had also said that 2022 was high activity for a lot of people.
Right. Yeah.
Which I had not heard till tonight, and that's interesting. I'm going to probably try to look into that more. So then, moving forward, let's see. July 22nd, 2025, so just last summer. Early in the morning, I had traveled out of my body. And the way I experienced it wasn't like I was in both places at once. I was just suddenly kind of hovering on the foredeck of an ancient Viking ship. And there were a bunch of men on the ship, and it was an extra wide Viking ship. Even in the foredeck, there was like 8 men, and they had long blonde hair, and they were just as real as a human being standing right next to you, even more vivid, energetically. Right. And they had long blonde hair. They were wearing like chest armor, and they
sounds like my kind of ship.
You know what? I've never taken an interest in Vikings, so I just found it very strange that I was all of a sudden on a Viking ship. I don't know anything about Vikings.
Oh, I love Thor.
Oh, do you? Okay. Well, so there I am hovering on a Viking ship, and I was right up close, but they acted like they couldn't see me. And they were all engaged in this communal adventure cry. They were really intense and excited about whatever they were doing. The ship was speeding through interstellar space. It wasn't in the water. And I just knew the trajectory was headed straight towards Earth, and it was moving at extremely high velocity. And then this knowing came upon me. Oh, this is a regular cycle. They come every, I don't know how many thousands of years on a regular cycle to this solar system, and they're coming to assess our consciousness. And I heard the word aspirations. They're interested in where our aspirations lie at this time in our evolution. So then I heard a voice right next to me. It almost sounded like, when we used to go to movie theaters and we'd watch previews. I haven't been to a movie theater in years, but the narrator voice for a preview, it almost sounded like that. This voice says, but this is what it actually looks like. And then all of a sudden I'm inside a spacecraft. And this is my first time being inside a spacecraft. My other experiences were always seeing a craft from Earth or interdimensional beings appearing next to me, but I've never, as far as I'm aware, I've never been in a spacecraft until last summer.
You don't remember being in a
Okay.
spacecraft.
This is the first, well, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
In this lifetime, this is the first time I remember. So, and like you said, it wasn't something I remembered after. I was there in real time. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden in the craft. It had these big, beautiful windows, and you could see the stars through the windows. You can see that you're in space. Each window had a booth with a table under it. And I was only viewing one section of what felt like a very large craft. So I was just hovering in one little section of the craft where there were big windows with stars outside and booths and tables under each window. There were no beings anywhere. It was very calm and orderly compared to the Viking ship. And I could hear this white noise that at first I thought it was the sound of high velocity travel, but then I started wondering if it was like air circulation because it sounded similar to what you hear when you're in an airplane cabin, but it was much softer, quieter. Now, I know you've been on craft. Did you hear that white noise? Kind of like if you just imagine like a shh,
I
steady.
don't recall.
You don't
Um,
recall that?
I don't recall if I have or not. It doesn't stand out to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was an interesting noise.
Mm-hmm.
It was just prominent. And that's because
Yeah.
there were no beings. So I had nothing else to really observe. And so
Mhm.
then I'm back in my body and I immediately sit straight up and I'm wide awake. I didn't feel like I was waking up. I felt like I just came back to my body and I'm just as alert as I was when I was up there. And
Right.
I have this ancient memory inside me. Like, how could I have forgotten that they were coming back in 2025? Like, I knew this. I knew this was the year that they're coming to do this major assessment of our consciousness. How could I have forgotten? And I better get my act together. I better get my consciousness up as high as possible for this assessment because I don't want to. I just know I don't want to score low on this assessment. I just feel that in my bones.
Yeah.
So then 3 days later, I'm on my laptop and this headline pops up. NASA spots massive objects speeding toward Earth. And my heart skipped a beat because it was the exact um, it was just very prominent when I was up there that this thing had a trajectory of going straight to Earth and it was high velocity and it was massive.
So this was before
I
we
had
even
n-
heard of Three Eye Atlas.
I had
Yeah.
not heard of Three Eye Atlas. This was July 22nd in the morning, and the article said that July 21st was when NASA caught the first high resolution picture of Three Eye Atlas. So it was just starting to capture people's attention because they just got the photo.
Yeah.
But I didn't even see that article until 3 days after my experience. And so nobody I knew was talking about Three Eye Atlas yet. No one was even interested. And I'm not normally interested in comets, to be honest, because I always thought that craft just pop in and out of portals. I didn't know that they would come from interstellar space
Mm-hmm.
on some kind of long, thousands of years cycle. Like that never occurred to me before. And even my friends who I told about it were like, that's not how spacecrafts get here. And I'm like, but why did I experience it like that?
How do they know that?
Well, in the moment they were just going with their belief system,
Yeah.
but it didn't change my opinion at all because I was like, but I came back with a memory of that I already knew it worked this way. It's just one way. I mean, the crafts come in and out of portals, but there's also this other phenomenon where they come interstellar into our solar system on a regular cycle. When I came back in my body, I remembered that and knew it was true.
Well, there's what people have called it a planet. I always thought it was a ship. Nibiru, I think it's called, where it comes around according to papers I've read, articles I've read about it, and research. The ninth or 10th planet. I don't know how many planets we have in our solar system. I can't remember, but
Oh,
it comes around at a certain, I don't know, on a few thousand-year cycle. It comes into our solar system and, closest to us at the end of, or in a cycle, like what you're talking about. But they
But
call it a planet in these
okay,
articles, Nibiru.
okay,
And I've always thought of that, that's not a planet, that's a ship. And sure enough, Elena Denon talks about this Nibiru ship. It's shaped like a freaking planet. It's as big as a planet, but it is a craft, a ship. And it has come into our, that's part of what happened in 2022, was that ship, Nibiru, came into our, entered our solar system.
okay, yeah. I remember hearing about it, but back then I didn't know that craft came through interstellar space, so I just didn't pay much attention to it. But now after this experience, I'm realizing that there's all kinds of different ways that these beings are moving through the galaxy. And there's a lot more for me to learn.
You know what's interesting, Therese? Sorry to interrupt you again, but there's a series. Do you know about the Stargate series?
I
Stargate.
have not watched it, but I've heard of it.
Oh, I think you'll love it. It's
Okay.
it'll, I'm sure it'll wake up things in you. Stargate SG-1 was the first. Well, the movie was first, Stargate, and then SG-1, where they, they go through these Stargates. And I actually remember a lot of it woke up memories in me of the secret space program, and
Mm.
where we went through Stargates, but we call them jump gates. And there's there's spin-offs of the original SG-1, and one of them is called Stargate Universe, I believe, and they find a interstellar ship that is not manned, and it roams around. It's on a trajectory, a certain trajectory around the galaxy, and it records data
Mm.
around the galaxy, and it goes to certain planets and knows where to go on a planet to fuel up, or a sun. Oh no, it goes to the suns to fuel up. It knows where the sun is.
Oh.
The Three Eye Atlas just went to the sun to fuel up.
It went to the sun and they saw like a tendril between the sun and the craft.
Yes,
I was wondering what that tendril was about.
it's fueling up, I bet. I mean,
Okay.
and Stargate Universe shows that uh, this ship, this craft, actually records data, like what you're talking about, but it fuels up its suns. And anyway, this crew got stuck on the craft and are going along the ride because they can't steer it anywhere because it's, yeah,
They're
it's
just
not
on there like hobos on a train.
exactly. It's a really good series. It didn't last very long. I don't know, maybe three seasons, but you know, it sounds like exactly what this craft may be doing, in some sorts.
Okay, yeah, I'll check it out, Stargate.
Mhm.
Um, so after I saw the headlines that NASA um, took high resolution images less than 24 hours before my out of body experience, I thought, okay, this has got to be connected, right? The Three Eye Atlas and whatever craft I was on, it has to be connected. And also, it was my first time getting invited up to a craft that I remember. And so I thought, well, maybe my guides are just reminding me that this is an important year and I got to get my vibration up where I want it to be. That's what I thought at first. But then I started waking up like once or twice a week, feeling like I'd forgotten to do a task that I had agreed to do. Like I
Mhm.
told the star beings I would do this thing and I'd forgotten to do it. I kept waking up like every week or twice a week like that. And eventually I decided I think I'm supposed to write about that experience that I had last July. It wasn't just for me. So in November, I started writing about it because, the craft's going to be closest to Earth December 19th. So I'm like, oh, I better start writing about it. And as I started writing about the experience, I looked into what Avi Loeb was saying. He's the Harvard physicist who's pointed out all these anomalies, like the
Right.
craft. The craft showed up almost exactly in alignment with the ecliptic, which is the path that all the planets travel around the sun on. And not only that, but it also timed it just right so that as the planets are moving around the sun on the ecliptic, it would have really close flybys. of several planets. And Avi Loeb said that when you combine those two factors, there's 1 in a million chance that that's natural. That sounds like intelligently planned, trajectory. So not only that, but the craft, as it was approaching the sun, it started glowing blue. And natural comets glow yellowish white. And there's a lot of other anomalies he pointed out about, like, they can, with their scientific methods, they can tell what kind of metals the thing is ejecting out of its jets. And there's natural jets and unnatural jets. And this thing's jets, they don't act natural. So he points out all kinds of things. But I was wondering, why the men with the long blonde hair? Why? I don't know anything about Vikings. I don't have an interest. Why was that such a prominent part of my experience? And then so that together with the comet or the craft glowing blue made me remember this trip I took down to visit the Hopis in Arizona way back in 2014, so 11 years ago, where I was actually on a road trip with my dad. He was in his 70s at the time. We were looking for Prophecy Rock. And we were driving on a desert road back and forth for like 20 minutes trying to find Prophecy Rock. We didn't pass any people. There were no cars, no people. And finally, I saw some tire tracks that traveled through the sand. And I'm like, let's just follow those tracks. So we did, and we ended up finding Prophecy Rock. There's no sign, there's no road. We're standing in front of the rock, and I've got my phone out. I'm trying to find something to read about the prophecy because we're looking at the carvings on the rock and we don't know what it means. And my dad's standing to my left, and all of a sudden this arm reaches in between my dad and I and pushes my phone down. We hadn't seen anybody, and we didn't hear him approaching. It was very unusual. He walks over to the rock without saying a word, and he starts sprinkling this white powder around the rock while he's praying in an indigenous language. Later, we found out it's cornmeal that he was sprinkling. After about, 5-10 minutes, he walked back over and shook our hands, and he introduced himself as Jose. And he started to tell us about the prophecy on the rock. And he started off on the left side of the carvings, and he described the true white brother who came from the stars long ago and taught the Hopis about the creator, about how to honor creation through rituals that you can work with the elements of the earth to bring the rain out to the desert and to do all kinds of other things. So it's rituals to honor and cooperate with the earth and the elements. And the true white brother told them that there's going to be a time when they have to make a choice between two paths. The path that most people are going to choose has to do with technology and just kind of the modern lifestyle of materialism that can lead to greed, and it can lead to unhappiness. And that path ended in a jagged line that represented like destruction of some kind. The other path, where not as many people are walking on in the carving, you can see more people are on the other path. The path less traveled is the one where you grow your own food, you do the rituals that you were taught about how to harmonize with nature, you honor the creator and nature through these rituals, and you live a life of gratitude and peace. And that path goes on for eternity in the carving symbolically. So he told us that the blue star Kachina was going to be seen in the sky as a sign that the true white brother was going to return soon. And my dad asked him, well, when's that supposed to happen? And he said, nobody knows the time for sure, but some of the elders around here believe it'll be 2025. This was back in 2014. And I remember my dad and I were calculating if he would still be alive or not. He is.
And he is? He is?
Yep.
Good. Yeah.
And so, I don't know how I lost track of that, but somehow I kind of lost track of that year 2025. I think just so much has gone on the last few years. So here I am writing the article and I'm like, oh my God, okay, he said 2025. He said blue star Kachina, and this thing is glowing blue when other comets don't. He said true white brother, and I saw those white men with long blonde hair. I don't know, it just seems like it could be connected, right? So I I think the next thing I did is I wanted to verify. Since I'm putting it in writing, I just wanted a little more confirmation. So I had a session with my mentor. And the first thing I asked her was, oh no, I don't want to forget this. That painting I sent you,
Oh, yeah.
the day after Prophecy Rock, we went to the Hopi Visitor Center. If I remember correctly, it's on the second mesa. There's three mesas, which I think might have been pyramids in ancient times. I don't know. That's just a theory I have. Now they're covered in dirt and they're flat on top. But the Hopi Visitor Center has a dining room with a huge, beautiful painting. And we were there the next day. We asked around about Jose. No one knew him. And I thought that was strange because it's a small community and he knew a lot about the Hopi, right?
Yeah.
And I've known a couple other people who've traveled to the Southwest, like Four Corners area, and they have mysterious run ins with indigenous men who just show up and disappear in a
Yeah.
strange way. And so it was interesting.
So you want me to bring up that?
Yeah, will you bring up that painting?
Sure. Okay.
So this is just a small copy that I bought to bring home, and it's kind of reflecting because I have it behind glass, but the painting itself is huge, and it's a beautiful painting. What you're looking at here, this is a kiva. The structure in the ground is called a kiva, and there's a ladder that you climb down into the inside. Down there, you can barely see it because it's so small right now, but there's two shamans down inside there, and one of them is looking up at the sky. There's another shaman. You see him sprinkling the cornmeal on top.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And what they're doing, what I found out when I was at the visitor center, I asked the women there, the Hopi women, what this painting was about. And they said, oh, those beings that are coming down from the sky, those are star people. We call them Kachinas. And they came here and visited us a long time ago. And see how they're all wearing different masks and costumes?
Yeah.
That just gives me the impression of many different nations, star nations, many different races of star people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the shaman that's down in the Kiva looking up, he's waiting for the Pleiades constellation to align in the sky so that he can see it through the opening where the ladder is. And that's how they time their rituals, with the Pleiades constellation.
Okay.
And so I didn't find that out until I was writing the article. Like, I knew a little bit about what the painting meant, but the women in the visitor center only told me a little bit. So when I was writing the article, I ordered a book called The Book of the Hopi because I just wanted to see if it said anything more about the true white brother. And it did. It has a whole long creation. You wouldn't believe how similar the Hopi creation story and their spiritual teachings are to ancient Hindu teachings with the chakras and everything. The Hopis
Mm-hmm.
know all about the chakras for thousands of years. But in the book, it talks about Pleiades a lot. They have Pleiades carved in like petroglyphs. They time all their rituals with Pleiades, and they describe the Kachinas as spirits from the stars. And you were telling me that you read once that Sasquatch they call that a Kachina. So Kachina is a
Mm-hmm.
general term for interdimensional beings, is what I've come to learn.
I also want to mention the blue star. During my near-death experience, Christ took me through a blue star. It was a portal. Yeah, when we were flying through the cosmos, when he took me to
Okay.
my home water world. We flew through we went through a blue star.
Wow.
Yeah.
Were you just flying next to him, like in some type of
He was holding
body?
my hand. He was holding my
Okay.
hand, and he took me on that journey through the cosmos. and we ended up flying toward a blue star and flew through it, merged through it, and ended up in another star system galaxy. I don't know, but that's where I was reintroduced to my home planet, the ocean planet, the water world.
Okay, so it was like a Stargate, maybe.
Yes,
Okay.
and I've heard. Do you know? Have you heard of Darius Wright? He's pretty famous now on podcasts. He's an amazing out of body experiencer, and I took one of his courses because I wanted to, see what his practice is, kind of thing. And he was talking about how stars are portals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard that before. I think, yeah, I've heard that maybe 10 years ago or so in an interview. Someone was talking about how all the stars are are portals or stargates.
Stargates, yeah, portals to other dimensions, other star systems. Yeah.
Other
So,
corners of the galaxy.
mm-hmm, totally. That's why the Stargate series is really hit home with me because they know all this stuff. I mean, of course, there's some Hollywood in there, but it's good stuff. So,
I
yeah,
think
okay,
a lot of these Hollywood stories got their information from insiders at some point because even with
yeah,
Chewbacca from Star Wars, I went down to East Ranch and I heard Bigfoot. I didn't see him, but I heard him,
uh-huh,
and he sounds similar to Chewbacca. And I'm like, wait a minute,
yeah,
they got that sound from somewhere.
yeah. I've been to ESETI 3 or 4 times at minimum, I think, and yeah, there's definitely Sasquatch around there. I mean, if you don't, peeps watching, if you live in the area or want to come to the area northwest, there's a ranch called ESETI in where is it, Trout Lake, Washington.
Yeah,
James Gilliland, yeah, rents it out during the nice months where you can watch the skies and communicate and have a really good experience.
yeah, and he on his ranch there's UFOs flying in and out of the mountaintop. And
Yes,
in the book of the Hopi, it talks about how the Kachinas told them, "We must leave now, for we are spirits, but we're going to be living in the top of that mountain." There's
Mount Adams,
what?
or just Mount Adams, or another
Oh, no,
mountain.
no, the mountain that was near the Hopi land.
Oh,
I
okay.
can't think of the name right now, but they consider it now a very sacred mountain, and I think they go there for rituals and stuff. But I remember when I read that in the book, I was like, oh yeah, they do. They fly in and out. I mean, people always see UFOs around mountaintops.
Oh, totally. Yeah, there's actually video at ESETI of a it looks like a huge door.
The trap
Yeah.
door. Yeah,
Hmm.
I've seen pictures of that where it's
Yeah.
open sometimes and other times it's closed,
Right.
and you'll see a little craft flying toward it in the
I
picture.
have I had an out of body experience once that was just as real as anything. Like you were saying, it's more real than here, where I
Yeah.
was in a ship and we were flying very quickly into a mountain. And
Mm,
the me, Sharon, was like screaming, "What's we're gonna crash into that mountain?" I didn't know what was going on because I was there as an observer, as me. And
yeah.
then the mountain, it was holographic, is what it was.
Oh,
We flew right into the mountain. So the mountain itself was a projected hologram. I don't know where it
wow.
was. Yeah, I don't know where it was, but it was an extraterrestrial base, some base there that we flew into, and I was freaking out.
That's fascinating. It makes me wonder why they needed a hologram mountain. I'm gonna have to ponder that.
Not the mountain itself,
Oh, okay.
just the part where they flew into the base.
Oh, to make it look like a mountain
The
when really
the
it's the
mountain,
opening.
that part of the mountain. Yeah.
Okay. To camouflage the opening into the
There you
mountain.
go.
Okay.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Mhm.
So, okay, so I read the Book of the Hopi, and then I scheduled a session with my mentor. And I just like to confirm things before I write them, you know? That's how I am. And I know it's not, some people wouldn't consider it confirmation, but I have long history of seeing how accurate she is. So about other things that can be confirmed. So I asked her, was I astral traveling when I went to on July 22nd to what I believe was Three Eye Atlas? And she said, you were invited like a reporter gets invited on a tour bus to see what they're doing and where they're at. And you accepted the invitation. So they extended this channel and you were reeled in up onto the ship, but you didn't bring your body. And that's exactly what it felt like. I felt like I was hovering when I was
Mm-hmm.
there. And she said, they're inviting you to write about it. And I said, well, I'm already writing about it. And I asked her, why didn't I see any beings on the ship? It was just empty tables and booths. And she said, oh, they were there, but if you had seen them, you would have been overwhelmed and come out of the experience. And I said, well, wouldn't they just look, if they were Pleiadians, wouldn't they just look like the Vikings that I saw first? And she said, they can take on that representation like Vikings because the lightness of the hair and the elongation matches like their energy signature, but they take on a lot of different forms. And apparently they were in a form that day that I would have found overwhelming. I don't know. So then I asked her about just in general the craft, like why is NASA insisting it's a comet? And she said, well, they're only being allowed to see a comet because anyone who would react with warfare or chaos is not going to be, she said, just like the craft above the river, it was cloaked like a cloud. They're cloaking this thing like a comet. And people who would not have a beneficial reaction are only going to be allowed to see the comet. That's what she said. And this was out, and then she began to voice channel the beings, letting them talk through her. And they said it's very easy for us to program people to only be able to see what they should see, what they're ready to see.
Mm-hmm.
And people are going to experience this in many different ways based on their readiness. And some people are just going to insist it's a comet till they're blue in the face because that's all they're being allowed to see.
Well, yeah, and that's all that they can handle too. That's what I was saying. When you look up, the group of people are looking up in the sky, and a couple people see a ship, and everyone else is looking at the same thing, and they can't see a ship. I believe it has to do with what, people's history, their filters, what they can handle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's what the beings are here assessing us for, our
Yeah.
aspirations. Are we desiring to experience what's beyond this solar system and what's beyond this physical realm? And who's ready for it and who isn't? Who wants it and who doesn't? Um, how many of you are ready and wanting that?
Mhm.
And I got to refer to my notes because I'm trying to remember the conversation with my mentor. What did I ask her about after that?
Also, a thought comes to me, that we, every single person doesn't have to believe that this isn't a comet, right, on the planet for us to have disclosure.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
No, not everyone,
And
but
that's not going to happen. Yeah.
right, not everyone, but I think maybe they're taking into consideration the percentage. I don't know. That's the feeling I got.
Yeah. What I understand is also that we are, the collective. As a collective, we cannot be a warring civilization, a
Yeah,
warring planet. And with our president now, who is working very hard, from what I see, is ending wars. I do believe that has a lot to do with disclosure.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they're waiting. I mean, just like my mentor said, anyone who would react with warfare is not going to be allowed to see them as a ship, because the beings don't want that reaction.
Mm-hmm.
These beings don't. Um, Now, this is one thing I wanted to bring up. She told me that they showed me a slide of the Viking ship before they showed me the real craft. She called it a
Oh,
slide.
right. Okay. That makes
And
sense. Yeah.
and it was so that I would find correlations between them and the Nordics, because in modern ufology, the Pleiadians were said to have seeded the Nordic race on Earth. And then there's the true white brother story from the Hopis, and I'm sure there's many other stories from ancient traditions that would link some type of visitor long ago with the Nordics.
Mm-hmm.
But as they painted in the Kachina painting, there's likely many different races and nations of star people. Yeah, I haven't
Well,
been 12 around that time. I was following people who would talk about this subject matter, and then I kind of took a long break from it and just was relying on my own experiences. But Michael Salla, I do know who he is. I just haven't listened to him since like maybe 2012 or something.
well, the reason I bring him up is because he talks to an insider named JP who was in the army, and he has lots of experiences with Nordics. And
Okay.
he actually on a recent, I haven't listened to it, but Michael Sala's title is JP, and he talks about Nordics and Three Eye Atlas. Just FYI.
Okay. Yeah, I should look into it for sure.
Yeah, if you're looking for confirmation, it's always nice to get some kind of confirmation about our experiences.
It is. It is.
And I've read Michael Sala's books because he's been talking to JP. JP he had the green light to come to him for years, and he wrote books on it. I think he's written two, and he's on the third with his conversations with JP. And there's so many of his experiences that, which I didn't actually see in interviews, but I read in his book that JP shares that correlate a lot of mine.
Okay.
Where he was a even though he was in the army and he had all these experiences that were real time, there are some that he didn't remember. They wiped his memory from them, but he went all over the solar system to different planets and the moon and Mars and Saturn, I believe, and Ganymede. And I mean, there's human civilizations on these planets, and he shared a lot of stuff that I'm like, oh my gosh, that's exactly like my out of body experience in 2014 or something. I'm so
Yeah, I
happy
love it when
yeah, I'm so
I
happy I
love it
write
when that
these things
happens.
down. Yeah, totally. I hope you journal all your stuff.
Oh, I need to get better at that. Sometimes what I do is I just text my friend, and then I know I have a record of it.
As long as you have record, yeah.
Yeah. But so just to wrap up the story, I what my what my mentor said was that when she was voice channeling them, they said that they're not so interested in what our governments or agencies like NASA are thinking. They're more interested in what each individual is feeling in their heart, like their personal emotional resonance is what they called it. That's what they're interested in. And so in my article, I kind of ended it with, regular meditation is one of the best ways to get your vibrational integrity stronger, your thoughts, words, actions, emotions in alignment with what's most important to your soul. And that's what gives us a high assessment with these visitors who are coming through to see where we're at in our evolution.
So are
So
you telling people that we need to we need to we need to shift our vibration because there's a report card coming.
I mean that was the feeling. I came back, or you can call it woke up, whatever. I didn't feel like
Yeah,
I woke up. I felt like I just entered my body again. But
right.
when I came back from that experience, that was where my concerns were. I want to score high. I want to get my vibration in a higher not just higher, but more congruent, more harmonious, because we can get
Right.
distracted, especially with just the chaos that's been going on the past 6 years. We can get distracted, you know, and I,
Oh, totally.
and
Yeah.
then it brings me back to the Hopi rock with the two paths. Like we can be on the path where we're not leaving enough time to honor nature and spirit in our schedule. and and that's not the path I want to be on. So
Yeah.
yeah, so really the article overall is just, encouraging people to pay attention to this important time, because there is an assessment going on, and how do you want to show up for that assessment?
Yeah. We want a good report card for sure. I love that. Thank you, Therese, for sharing all that. And you can find her article on tarahealing.com.
On tarahealingarts.com, and
Okay.
if you scroll down, there's a section where you can sign up for my Substack page, and I'm going to be releasing more articles.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Yes, this really, really good information. And I've felt in my heart and soul too. I mean, when star seeds wake up and when something happens, you're like, oh yeah. Oh, just like you. Oh yeah. Oh, that's right. That's why I'm here. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it feels like, how did I forget that?
I know. How could I forget? Yeah, totally. And you're
Yeah.
right about the distractions. We get distracted, and that's the whole idea behind this matrix is to distract us. Yeah, totally. I did have an out of body experience where I was reporting in to some star beings about my time on Earth, and it's they asked me the first. They called me a different name too, and they
Oh,
asked me,
what did they call you? What did they call you?
you
Because
know, I don't remember, but I
what?
did as I was going through my journals. I haven't got to that one yet. As I was going through my journals, I did come across where I was called something else by someone. Um, and his name was Magu, Magu, and I was what was it? I was with a bunch of humans and colored clothing, and we were sitting outside. And actually, no, I'm sorry, they were wearing pale blue dresses. The women were, and an elder man sat with me, and he said, "Welcome back." And he said my name. It's good to see you again. And he called me Persenny,
Hmm,
Persenny. Yeah,
that's a nice name.
yeah.
It
And I
sounds like
wrote it down.
it could be a female name. When I was in the mountains after that craft above the river incident, there was a night in a different cabin, because we had to move up the river to a different cabin, where a portal. It was, those A-framed cabins. They,
Yeah,
I swear, they act like pyramids, because I was up in the top
yeah.
floor and I was looking up at that ceiling that's shaped like that, and I could feel a portal opening, and then a bunch of different things happened. There were some ghosts that popped in, just their faces, and then one of my guides told me that this tea I was drinking was dehydrating me. It was just like they were all taking the opportunity. And then I heard an echoey voice, powerful echoey voice from high up say, Lucius, Lucius. And
Oh,
it was right when I was thinking about the craft above the river, and how I've been told that I'm, a star seed, and I received a download a long time ago in 2012 that I was from Arcturus, and I didn't even spell it right because I'd never heard of it. And so I was just laying there in bed with this weird portal activity above me, and I was thinking about how I'm this being from Arcturus. And right when I thought that, I heard this echoey voice say, Lucius. So I think that's my name, and it kind of sounds male to me. I don't know.
like the Roman name Lucius, maybe. Yeah, but it does
Yeah,
sound a little bit male, but that doesn't mean anything. But
yeah.
yeah, interesting. I love that.
I like sharing these stories because we have a lot in common.
Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you so much for your time tonight, Sharon. It was
Thank
fun.
you. Yeah, it was. And thank you. And hopefully you'll be back and we can have a lot more conversations about experiences. Because
Yeah,
I have a feeling they're gonna keep happening, and you have a lot to share for sure.
they might be ramping up now. again. We'll see.
Yeah, totally. And remember, everyone, we're getting our report card. What is it? The 19th that Three Eye Atlas is coming around again, coming closest to the Earth, I should say.
And then it's going to go out towards Jupiter, and it's going to be close to Jupiter, which is actually in astrology. Jupiter would be the planet responsible for report cards, because Jupiter is it rules over the ninth house, and the ninth house rules over judges and the higher mind and higher education. And so I think maybe that's the end of the assessment. It's going to pass by Jupiter and then leave our solar system. But, one last thing. I'm so sorry. That was an important point that my mentor made when I talked to her about my experience. I said, is Three Eye Atlas the blue star Kachina? And she said, yes, but there's more than one. There's going to be more ships coming. Every time there's going to be more evidence building. And it's not going to be one nationwide proclamation. It's going to be people waking up more and more. Some scientists are going to be seeing a craft, and others are going to be seeing a comet. And so the blue star Kachina, from what she was saying, there's more than one, but this is like the beginning of more of these ships coming more often.
What is the name of that? That reminds me that ship that's kind of like they call it a comet that was discovered in Hawaii. Omo.
Oh, yeah, that Hawaiian word that no one can say. Yeah.
I know. That's another one that I felt was a exploratory ship like this one.
Well, now after my out of body to Three Eye Atlas, I am thinking back and I'm like, yeah, I bet you they were also. It's the same kind of thing, but maybe every time it's going to look more and more like a craft. It's going to reveal more and more anomalies, So I think you're probably right about that, because I do remember people saying that there were anomalies about that one too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. All right, my friend. Thank you for being here. And
thank you for having me.
Of course, and thank you for sharing. And people can get a hold of you at, can you tell us again?
Yes, my website is antarahealingarts.com, and I think you're going to put it with my bio under the video.
Okay. Yes, definitely. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Therese, and thank you everyone for watching. Have a wonderful holiday. We don't see each other by then, but anyway, bye. I'm Sharon Kumara, and you have been listening to Awakened Soul Radio on Transformation Talk Radio. I invite you to embark on a transformative journey with us. Awakened Soul is a safe, sacred space for exploring the depths of our consciousness. Each episode, you will be inspired to shed the illusions that bind you, connect more deeply with your inner wisdom, and step into a liberating life of freedom, clarity, and purpose. To connect with me, visit kumaraacademy.com.